Hey, don't touch him. Here, but we've been out here like
He's been
a
working
ton
on
of
it though.
times trying to get this stuff sorted out, and nothing's changed.
There's been some changes. He's got some. I mean,
Well,
she has, not him, but she's gotten shit off the
some
property.
people moved out, and that was
No,
pretty
she
much it.
actually literally has gotten loads out of here, but without a bunch of money to pay for the loads. You know what I'm saying? They're trying really hard
to try to save it. You know what I mean? They're trying their best to save their stuff, and he's just rooting them out of it.
You're a fucking monster, and I hate you.
I might have to go.
Who's next? Heather Kelly? Heather Kelly, please state your name and your address in the microphone and the reason for your visit, please.
I'm not used to it. I'm a little. I'm here directly for the Calvin Ames property, 1188, the property in question. I've lived there for the past almost 8 years. Just renting from the Ames family. Parents before passed. But so I've been displaced from this also. But in a bigger scope, there's several people sitting there behind me. Karen Jones, which just talked, Calvin Ames, myself, Larry Smith, which made the paper, Eric Ship, and I could go on. There's a long list. Those are just the people that are here today that have been affected, misplaced from their homes entirely from the new code enforcement officer that been wreaking havoc on, well, what would he call? He called the undesirables of Toledo. That's what he's deemed as. So, I mean, I don't know exactly how into it I can go today because I could speak for quite a while. He's right. He told me not to bother pursuing any legal action against him because I'm not going to be able to afford it. So it would be pointless. So he's right. I have tried and tried and tried and called every legal aid, assistance place you can to help Calvin save his property. He literally built that house from the ground up with his father. He's the last remaining Ames in the area, and everything is Ames this, Ames that. Ames is a big part of the community. Also, I want to point out that when you look up the job description for code enforcement officer, it says right in the first three sentences that they're supposed to be helping people stay in their homes, figure out how to work with the city, meet, get their properties up to code in a timely fashion. I'm going to have to say that he's not doing his job as far as I've read, because when they served the initial search warrant to look for code violations, because you couldn't see anything from the street at 1188, because there was a gate, because we have two big dogs, and then you can't see the sides of the house or the back of the house, and he obviously wanted to come look further than what was from street view, which is fine. Like I told him, had he asked me, I would have let him in. He didn't do that. He came with 6 officers. It was a big ordeal.
Heather,
Mhm.
that was a timer for the
Oh,
time.
okay.
So, but thank you for being here to
Okay.
support Calvin and his process that he's going through and for your comments. Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Calvin, please come forward. Wait till you get to the microphone so we can hear you. Okay.
I did live at 1188 55th Street on 14. Right now. I have been violated really bad by this guy. He was supposed to give me 21 days. I was out of town when this initially started.
I was on the mushroom circuit, go around a couple different states, pick mushrooms. The guy was supposed to give me 21 days. Well, he started tearing stuff down on the 8th day. All my personal belongings is in my house, and I haven't been able to get in there to get them. And he said he was going to exterminate us, our kind of people. I said, I've got this on the phone. I got to take it over to the mall and get it fixed, but he needs to be kept in for criminal things that he did. If he violated all kinds of violations. And I'm in the process of getting a lawyer right now. But, you know, if we can settle this out of court, and be happy with that too. But he was supposed to start, give you 21 days. He started on the 8th day, tearing down property. My house wasn't condemned or the garage. He tore the garage down. The only thing left standing on my property right now is my house. I'd like somebody else to have an opinion. There's nothing wrong with that house. I could have brought 40, 50 people here tonight. He's got some criminal charges that should be brought against him. I mean, this is very serious, you know. He called us, he said this was his town. This is the exact words out of his mouth. This is his town, and he was going to exterminate us or send us to Portland because he didn't want us undesirable people in this town, in his town. And it's a bad situation. It needs to be looked into. I mean, that's about what I got to say for right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for coming,
Yeah.
for your courage and being here, all of you. Thank you for your words and your comments. And counselors, there's a couple items on our agenda later in the agenda that speak to this. So we'll be addressing this in a few minutes. So thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on our agenda. And I think I would have had them speak later if I would have known it was regarding those things, just that would be tied in easier. Public hearing and request for council action regarding applications for publicly owned facilities and pocket parks. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, request for council action, code compliance abatement liens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a presentation for you, and so the report, essentially, abatement is a difficult topic. Code enforcement in general is a difficult topic. Chapter 8.04 of the Sweet Home Municipal Code outlines a number of nuisances that property owners must either clean up or face fines or face abatement of the nuisance by the city. Abatements require the city to hire a private company to clean up the property, after which the city invoices property owners for the work that was done, plus an administrative fee. Sweet Home Municipal Code 8.042 outlines that procedure for abating code violations. When a property owner not only fails to maintain or clean up their property, but also fails to repay the city for the work needed to bring their property into compliance, the only way that the city has to ensure that it is made whole is to assess a lien on the property. With a lien in place, the city can ensure that it is either repaid when the property is later sold, or it can pursue repayment through the foreclosure process. So the following properties, why don't I join the chat and I'll present it there. Just a moment, please. So, to recap, this is the process by which the city is made whole for cleaning up properties. These properties are on the agenda for tonight. They have outstanding code compliance abatement invoices. 4143 Osage Street, 1435 22nd Avenue, 1333 13th Avenue, and 1188 55th Avenue. 4143 Osage Street, the owner is James E. Gillette, who is deceased. Violations on the property include nuisance building, noxious vegetation, and open storage. The proposed lien is $8,320. We received complaints from the neighborhood about a rundown building with overgrown vegetation and junk that was often used by squatters. And our code enforcement officer, Blake Dawson, investigated the property, attempted to contact the responsible party, but could find none. And after providing notice of the necessary abatement, again, when the owner is deceased, the only address we have on file is whatever is available from the county records. And we post that same notice on the property itself. But again, when there's no responsible party coming forward, there's no way to get anyone to actually do anything about the property. And so in this case, the city had to step in and abate the property, cleaned it up, boarded up the dangerous building, and all the residents nearby were very appreciative. We don't have great pictures of this one, but you can see some of the issues we were dealing with here. Lots of overgrown vegetation against the structure. And then this is what it looks like after it was cleaned up. So we do know that this property has not had taxes paid on it for some time, so eventually it'll be facing foreclosure from the county. Our intent, of course, is to make sure that the property is cleaned up and brought into a useful condition. Obviously, we've made investments in that, and so staff are requesting that a lien be placed on the property so that we can make sure that by the time the county forecloses for taxes, we also get our money paid back as well. And if you have questions about the foreclosure process, Robert can provide an outline of how that would work. We could initiate foreclosure ourselves. We could wait for the county to do it. There's options there.
Before we go on, can we take one at a time?
Yeah.
And then I can just ask if there's anybody in the audience here who would like to appeal regarding 4143 Osage Street. Seeing none, is there any online? No. Okay.
I do have a question. Blair, so if the county takes over the property, we have a lien on there, does the county pay that back to us? Or we just eat it?
Well, it's important for us to protect our lien
Right.
to ensure that we get paid back. And Robert might be a better one to answer that question. I believe that there are steps we would want to take to make sure that we get our own payback. Any comments on that, Robert?
We'd want to act before the county acted.
Pardon?
We would want to act before the county acted.
Okay. Seeing none, moving on to the next address, please.
1435 22nd Avenue. The owner is Eric Ship. The violations include an unlawfully occupied RV, occupancy violations of the structure, nuisance animals, burning trash stored outside, open storage, and abandoned vehicles. The proposed lien is $5,200. This is not a completely cleaned up property. Code compliance was notified, had complaints from the neighborhood of several violations. Staff contacted the responsible parties and issued warnings and citations. Occupants of the property claim to be working on the problems. However, conditions are worsening. The city abated an unlawfully occupied and hazardous RV, which is where that expense comes from. Those are quite costly to tow away and dispose of. Additional abatements are planned pending court rulings and available budget. So these are pictures of the property prior. You can see the travel trailer there. The city does not allow the occupancy of the permanent occupancy of travel trailers and RVs. You can only occupy them on a temporary basis, at the most 60 days out of the year. And then it's been removed, but other issues on the property remain.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience regarding 1435 22nd Avenue who owns the property that would like to appeal? You would need to come forward and speak into the mic. Is this your property? Oh.
Yep, tomorrow. I mean, the code enforcer should go by and take a picture of it because I spent the whole day there today and it's
Okay.
looking really good.
Okay.
There's one pile left and it will be taken care of tomorrow.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay,
Thank you for your comments. Moving on.
Okay. Next property is 1333 13th Avenue, also known as the Church Mouse. The owner is Judith Moulton. The violations include a dangerous building, noxious vegetation, open storage, abandoned vehicle. Proposed lien is $39,812.60. There was an existing city lien of $69,770 in place from previous actions. And if the proposed lien is approved, that would result in a total lien of $109,582.60. This property has a history with the city. Many of you are probably familiar with it. I will go over the most recent history. Our code compliance officer was notified by Adult Protective Services of an individual residing at that property in need of care, and that was residing in a dangerous building. In order for her to qualify for care from, I believe, Medicaid and other programs, it was important that it be made clear that the property really was dangerous, and so the city went through a condemnation process to condemn the building. You'll see the pictures in a moment. It was in atrocious condition. Frankly, I'm amazed that the occupant was still with us. Staff assisted multiple other agencies to identify the hazards and violations, and that enabled the individual to be rehoused. The owner was incapable of resolving any of the hazards and violations. The APS rehoused the individual in a care facility, and code compliance facilitated an abatement to bring the property into a safe and sanitary condition. These are a few pictures of the property inside and out. It was in pretty awful shape. And this one with the trash can is during the process. That you can see that like when he went out there, when he first entered the property, his head actually brushed the ceiling because of how much debris there was on the floor. And it was only after the cleanup was done that he realized how high up off the ground he was walking from just the accumulation that was in there. Now the outside of the property is clean and cleared up. The inside is not completely habitable at this point. However, to make it more habitable, it would require significant more investment. And that's something that's best suited for someone who buys the property or if someone chooses to demolish the structure. It would take, the structure has been condemned. And so anyone who had title to the property would have to bring the structure completely up to code before that condemnation order could be lifted, or they would need to demolish the structure and build something new. Any questions on that one?
Okay, so regarding 1333 13th Avenue, is there anyone here in the audience who owns or is associated with the property that would like to appeal? Okay, moving on to the next piece of property.
1188 55th Avenue. The owner are Eldred and Eugenia Ames, deceased. Violations include dangerous building, burning and burying trash, raw sewage leaking from a structure, junk vehicles, open storage, trash stored outside, unlawfully occupied RVs, and general nuisances. The proposed lien is $38,223.60. Code compliance was notified by neighbors of burning trash and raw sewage leaking from the property. Staff visited, identified multiple additional violations of worst degree and severity. Staff attempted contact with any reasonable party, but none were found. I'll just add that this has been in the process since last summer. I believe June or July was when Blake first started working on this property. And every time he visited, there would be people there, but nobody could identify who owned the property or who was responsible for it. And despite all these attempts, we went through citations, et cetera, warnings that were issued, but could not find anyone to take responsibility for the property. Code compliance has facilitated an abatement of the property, including demolition of 2 dangerous structures, removal of burnt and buried trash, and cleanup of a pool of raw sewage. Here we have pictures of the property before cleanup. Essentially, lots of accumulated debris, garbage. And then this is afterward. The property, the remaining house is probably fine structurally. However, parts of it have been removed, including the chimney, and it has been boarded up to keep the property from falling into disrepair again. And so that is our report on that one.
Okay. And anybody in the audience who would like to come forward, who would like to appeal 1188 55th Avenue? And what you're appealing at this point in time is a lien.
Have any objections to the lien?
Objections to the lien. Thank you. You need to state your name again so we know who's talking, okay?
Heather Kelly.
Yeah.
Actress again. He stated that the code enforcement officer made several attempts to contact and couldn't find out who's responsible for the property. That's not true. I was there. I was the tenant there. I was there every single time that he came. I talked to him every single time, tried to work with him, let him know that yes, Eugene and Eldred had passed, that they willed it to their son Calvin. There's a in writing a will that has been filed with the court. It's all legal and outstanding. However, Calvin took his mother's death particularly hard, harder than we thought, and which is one of the reasons why he went on the mushroom picking circuit that we talked about, just kind of a sabbatical to try to, get prepared to take over the house and get things, back in order. Because it just wasn't happening here. Everything was over my mind. At any rate, I was there. He told me that he called me anything from insignificant to incompetent but he refused to work with me or talk to me because I wasn't an A. Even though we were in a relationship for 7 years. And we're no longer, but we still live together and work together. So I very much, and I told him I was in direct contact with Calvin, but a lot of times you can just pick up a cell phone and call Calvin, who's out in the middle of the woods. But I relayed all the messages and that he asked me to. He just wasn't having it unless Calvin was standing in front of him and he saw the whites of his eyes. It was not good enough for him. And then there was nothing I could do. I told him that one of my sole purposes for coming back, because I had been living in Roseburg for about 8 months, but I came back because the property had accumulated the trash and whatnot in Calvin's absence. Is what had happened. People had come there and brought trash and without it being supervised, it stands to reason. But my purpose for coming back was to get all of that taken care of. He gave me no time. He literally came and put condemned notices on the buildings, the shed and the guest house. One evening just before 5, and by 8 a.m. the next morning, he was driving a bulldozer over the gate and through the guest house. There was nothing I could do. I mean, I was and otherwise I would have had it all taken care of. My goal was to have it taken care of before Calvin came back because I didn't want him to have to see the home that he built in that condition. So, I mean, that was that was something I just wanted to do on a personal level for Calvin. So he could come back and, kind of start fresh, as fresh as possible. But by the time Calvin got back, everything was demolished. You can't undo that. There's, and he came back as quick as he could. When he's 4 states away, what can you do?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we tried. I would have been willing. If he would have gave me 2 weeks, I would have had it all done. Oh, I don't know what else to say. I wasn't given the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you for speaking.
Yep.
And you come up and object to the lien.
Well, it's in probate right now. So I guess I'm not actually the owner.
Mm.
It was willed to me. It's all filed in court and stuff. When I got back, I loaded up 2 flatbed trailers full of garbage that needed to go to the dump. The rest of the stuff, I was cleaning out the attic and stuff because it's a big house. We're gonna have an estate sale. Well, and he told Mr. Blake, Jake Blake, or what's his other name, Blake?
Blake Dawson.
Huh?
The code officer is Blake Dawson.
Okay, he told Heather that she could get her personal stuff out of the house, which she did, put it on a flatbed trailer. I had 5 flatbed trailers there. By the time she got back the next morning, pulled the trailer out, he'd hauled the stuff to the dump and twisted the tongue to the trailer to where it couldn't be used. He did this to 5 trailers I had there, and I've got all kinds of witnesses to this. I had 2 loads ready to go to the Sweet Home Sanitation. He pushed him, or his crew did, one of the crew members, pushed the garbage off the trailer and left it right in the yard. Twisted the tongues on those trailers too, so they couldn't be used. He did this to 5 trailers. Then I had people take my pickup, a Dodge pickup. Well, he got caught wanting to put a big old piece of petrified wood that my mom planted cactus in it 30 years ago. Heather caught him. He was going to put it in a personal truck. She goes, "No, that's Calvin's." This is before I got back. So he walked over with his machine and dropped it right on the hood of my 87 Mazda pickup I had there. Just destroyed my truck. And I finally get back, so we take my Dodge pickup I got, we push it off the property over into the neighbor's lot, which I had permission years ago from the guy there. He lives in California. It's really hard to get a hold of, but we had permission to use that lot every now and then. We put my Dodge pickup over there, 2 trailer loads of my tools, and a friend of mine had his car parked over there. Next morning, we get there, and he's got tow trucks hauling off the trucks and the car. And he took the trailers. I don't know what he did with them, but had all my tools, personal stuff out of the shop. He tore down my shop, didn't even have a condemn notice on it. When he come there, he put a condemn notice on the trailer. Nobody had been living in it. But years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, it did have a sewer leak, so nobody lived in it. But, the old stuff was probably still underneath it, which I had no problem with that, You could take that trailer. But once he got on the property, he just destroyed stuff and stole stuff. It's true. They had personal piles of stuff that they took, destroyed that truck. Then he put a condemn notice on the house. That house is sound. I'd like to have somebody else's opinion to go there and look at it. There's nothing wrong with that house. There is now. He's had the meter box took out, wires cut off the power pole, but he did all kinds of violations there, bad ones. In the process of getting a lawyer, but he needs to be looked into for criminal charges. He tore up. It's crazy what he did. I don't know. Everybody that knows me and knows that property is they're just flabbergasted with this, what he did. I don't know if the personal banditti or what. But like I said, he said he was going to exterminate our kind of people. He was going to exterminate us or send us to Portland. This was his town, and he didn't want our kind in his town. Exactly. I got a phone. I got to take it over to the mall and get it fixed. But it has all these videos on it. The stuff that he did is bad. It's really bad.
Thank you for coming forward and
Thank
object.
you.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I've heard a lot of concerning things about our code officer tonight. A lot of it contradicts what I've heard from other sources. Our officer does wear a body cam for this exact reason. And so I'll be reviewing those videos. I have not, and I've spoken with Mr. Ames before. And many of these allegations, I've not heard from him before. I wish he would have brought up some of these concerns with me prior. We had an appointment to meet. You weren't there. So
This would be a better place to bring this up.
it's up to you, but we had an appointment. So I haven't been able to investigate any of this because it's the first time I'm hearing any of it. So I am very concerned, but I also believe that the pictures on the property speak for themselves. This has been an issue for years, and our officer has been working on it for the past 7 months. So when we put out notices for abatement, it's after we make an attempt to work with property owners and work with occupants to clean up a property, and they have plenty of notice. There is a violation there. In this case, we are forced to work with the property owner because ultimately they are the responsible party for the property. However, we do work with tenants when there is a tenant agreement that we can tell that they have a right to be there. In this case, we didn't have any documentation of that, and we didn't have, especially early on, there were different people every time Blake showed up. So we don't have. I understand what folks are saying, and that I appreciate their point of view, but there were lots of notifications prior to the actual abatement being done. As for the crew, we hire private crews for abatement. City staff does not do abatement. Blake does not drive a bulldozer and does not operate any heavy equipment. And so I'm not sure how some of that is possible. What a cleanup crew does with the stuff, usually it involves putting in a dumpster and hauling it away. Could something have happened where someone on the crew took some things? That's certainly possible. I could investigate that and see what I can find out. But we didn't have any reports of this prior when the abatement was actually happening. And I'm not sure if any police reports were filed or made. Chief Ogden would be better to speak to that.
I'm not aware of any police reports made. I know that there were some concerns from some of the folks about the process, but we referred them to you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to take any other questions you might have.
Madam Mayor, I have one real quick. So in my history of being on the fire department, there was many times that we had to go put fires out for stuff that was not supposed to be burned. I don't know if that's a situation here, but it can be bad. Let's put it that way. And having to put them out that are not burnable stuff, it makes it even worse. And I'm not saying one way or the other here, but it's a costly thing for everyone. I understand that. And you're right. You're not going to have to research this and figure out if those things were correct or not. So
I believe our officer is present in the building if you have any questions directly for him.
Any other questions from counselors?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to understand fully the responsible party is
the people who are on record as owning the property are deceased. Calvin and we actually, in our attempts to contact Calvin, at one point someone anonymously dropped off a copy of a will, but we don't know who actually dropped that off, and it listed Calvin and his brother Waylon as receiving the property. However, no probate action, nothing was ever changed, and I believe there's taxes owed for the past 4 years or so on this property that have never been paid. So no effort was actually made that we can see to get this property into anyone else's name.
okay. And then can you tell me what the lien actually means on the property and the process that follows after a lien? Are they allowed to go back to their home, or
Sure.
Do you go through court, or what happens?
So the main thing preventing the property from being occupied right now is that the building is condemned. And so someone would need to do some rehabilitation work to bring it up to code, and our building inspector would take a look at the property and verify that it has been brought up to code. once a lien is placed on a property, it does accrue interest, but it's just stays there until either the property is sold, in which case the lien would come up and it would be paid as part of the process of the sale, or unless the city takes action to foreclose. The county forecloses on property all the time for non-payment of taxes. And so they often go through that process. To my knowledge, the city hasn't done a foreclosure for quite some time. But that is something that the city would weigh when to move forward with foreclosure. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat. And can I ask Robert a question? So the Supreme Court recently ruled about the equity regarding foreclosures being due back to the property owners. Would that entail a code enforcement violation fee, or do you know?
I would have to just look up I'll talk with you after the thing and see what you've got, and I'll look it up so I can answer it.
I think I know the case she's referring to, though.
Do you?
Essentially, there were some properties that were foreclosed upon and sold, and the foreclosing agency kept the entire proceeds of the sale. And I believe the court said, no, you only get what your costs were and not the full value of the property. And so if I remember correctly, that's probably what, I recommend further research, certainly.
Sure.
But the point is, our lien is for actual costs, and that would be the amount that we would get back if the city foreclosed on the property and then sold it to satisfy the lien. Then anything that we received above the lien and the accrued interest on that lien would go back to the owner of the property. Now, in this case, they would need to complete the probate process, certainly, but that extra value would come back to them.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from counselors?
Yeah, and just to answer yourself, we'll have to look into that because there's different things that go there, and we'll have to see if that case states anything that would change the ORSs right now, because you do, if is my understanding, if it works like this, that you ask if like two bidders came in and bid the price up more than what our lien is, and let's say our lien's the only thing on there, just for example, then the property owners would get the excess. But that doesn't always work if if nobody shows up and the property comes back. Then then at least under the ORS as it stands right now, it's a different story on who gets it.
Thank you.
So I'll just have to see about the case that you mentioned and go with it.
Okay, Councilor Corley.
For clarification, so the person who has the property that has a lien against it, they have the ability to make payments to pay this lien off?
So certainly, anybody who has a lien against their property, they don't have to wait to be forced to do it. They can pay it off at any time. And it's recommended that they do because it does accrue interest.
But they don't have to pay it in a lump. They can pay it off in payments as it's.
Well, it just reduces the lien. I mean, the city could make other arrangements, I assume, but let's say you have a $10,000 lien, you just come in and pay $5,000 on it. They mark it down. You only owe $5,000. It just is it's as simple as that. You wouldn't have to have anything else. You're just paying off a debt. And so if the person gets the money, then the debt's done.
And this is only for the expenditures of cleaning the property with the administrative cost. Right. It's also an incurred cost. But I would feel better reviewing for both parties, reviewing all contacts with property owners on this and what has occurred, particularly the piece where the cleanup occurred. But I had a question all along. When did the last Eugenia pass away? It's been 3 years. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. All right.
3 years ago.
I think that pretty much, if there was no improprieties in how this was done, this actually gives the an opportunity to start working on repairing the building because that cleanup has already been done. I don't know. It's always a tragedy when you have to.
And then there's also in the so everybody knows, there's also in the law, there's a redemption period also.
Okay, and what does that mean?
1 year. Means that the way I read it right now, if we go through a foreclosure and even sell the property to somebody else, the owner can still come back in and redeem it within a year and pay and do whatever that says pay off whatever it is, and they have to come up with the price. Some a certain way is done in cash type of deal, but there is a redemption period, just like there is with the county when they do their taxes. They do 4 years and then they wait another couple of years to have people redeem before they deed it over to themselves.
So that leads me to my last question. You may have mentioned this and I just didn't pick up on it. So a person has something like this against them and they do due diligence and they pay monthly. How long do they have to pay this back to the city?
Well, I don't think there's any agreement set up right now, but the realities is if you're in a foreclosure, you've got certain time frames you have to comply with. Like there's 60 days before you even start right now. There's 4 times in the paper that you've got to put it in. There's some other timelines. And then there is the redemption period. So that person has opportunities for a while anyway to get their property back.
So are we
By
foreclosing?
paying off the
Are we foreclosing or are we putting a lien?
we're doing
put a
both.
lien.
You put the lien on to do the foreclosure.
But foreclosure is a separate action, correct?
Correct.
And so, and there's
Now
no,
we're gonna
there's no hard and fast rule as to when exactly foreclosure happened. It's kind of, it's a matter of when the,
Correct.
is there any rule on what conditions have
There
to be
may
present for
be
that?
I don't say off top. There may be statute of limitations someplace along the line that it falls off, just like a judgment. You can have a judgment for so long and then after such amount of time it falls off. But point being is that there is a time period in which we can foreclose on the lien. It doesn't have to be. We could hold a lien for a year and then start our foreclosure.
If I may, just to clarify a little bit. So there's 3 separate issues already occurring here. One would be the cleanup cost, which is what we're talking about now. So there was the cleanup cost, which was the abatement, and that is what is happening for the lien. Then the house was also condemned. But if Calvin is able to go through the probate process and can bring that back up to code, he can absolutely move back into the house once that has been determined to be structurally sound again. Then finally, there is at a later date discussions about if we would want to go into foreclosure. But that is an entirely different discussion than just the liens. Now, having a lien does allow us to start that process should we so choose to do. But at the moment, all we're looking at is the lien. And then finally, because there were some accusations that were made tonight that had never been previously made, we're also going to be reviewing those particular incidents. I will say we have had some some requests to view body cam footage in the past, and those have always been just fine. So I'm hopeful that we'll see, but it's always prudent to take these accusations very seriously. And so we will be reviewing those in the next few days. But I just wanted to clarify. So the only piece we're really looking at right now is just the abatement and the lien. And then you're absolutely correct, Councilor Gorley. At any time, they could start paying back on that lien, or they could wait, sell the property at a later date as well. And then we'd be paid back.
Madam, I have a question. Robert, so does that lien ever go away?
Well, that's what we were saying. I would have to look up it, like I referred to, like if you get a judgment against a person, then it becomes a lien within the county. And those things actually do go away after a while. And so I would just have to look up to see if there's a statute of limitations on a
Okay.
lien. But it's years down the road, not, in a
All
few
right,
months.
thank you.
It's- Statute of limitations are usually several years.
Madam Mayor, can I ask one more?
Yes.
When we decide on this agenda item, are we able to decide on individual properties? Are we able to decide? Okay, because I think that based upon some of the things that have been brought up, I would feel more comfortable with reviewing the process and making sure that it was followed, which I believe that it was, but just like you said, for prudent sake, and then just seeing if we can individualize each property.
Yes, I was going to bring that up as an option. Counselors, you're allowed to pull one property out at a time and make the recommendation, or group them together. We could also choose to table a property to decide on it after reviewing issues. So any suggestions from council?
I'd prefer just doing them all together.
Madam Mayor, I think I agree with that. Only because we could go for a long time before we get this squared away somewhat. I think we need to do what we can do and do it the best we can. I don't think I'd want to put them off for however long. It would make more sense to just take care of all of them and then not have to go through this again over and over and over. That's just my opinion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
When it comes to people's personal property, I think that we need to make sure that we have the process reviewed, especially with accusations. So I personally would like to table this until next meeting so we have more information before we make a decision on this item.
Are you tabling the whole agenda item, or are you tabling an individual property?
I would prefer to individualize this and just that one property, table that one property and vote on the rest because there's nobody here to object. But because there's an objection with some accusations, I'd like to table that one property to review.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to table. I'm going to repeat the address, just clarify which is the 1188 55th Avenue. So with that motion, I will need a vote.
Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Councilor Gorley,
Yes.
Councilor Richards,
No.
Councilor Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Thorstad,
Yes.
Councilor Trask.
No.
Let the record show that we have 4 ayes, 2 nays, 1 absent to table address 1188 55th Avenue until it is reviewed. Process is reviewed.
So just to clarify, and perhaps another vote is necessary. Are you saying you're setting the liens as recommended on the other 3?
We haven't made a motion on that yet. Just to table this one particular one until we've looked into it further. Okay, so the remaining 3 addresses. Is there?
So moved as recommended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the remaining 3 liens. Cecily, please take a vote.
Councilor Thorstad, Councilor Trask,
Yes.
Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Councilor Gorley,
Yes.
Councilor Richards,
Yes.
Councilor Sanchez.
Yes.
Let the record show that we have 6 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent to approve the liens on the other 3 addresses as 4143 Osage, 1435 22nd, and 1333 13th Avenue.
So our next meeting is going to take care of the one at 1188 55th. Is that the way I'm reading it?
We have tabled that one until the next meeting, and our next meeting is on February
So
27th.
My question then is, are we going to make a decision then, or are we going to put that off again? I'm just asking. I'd rather not go for weeks and weeks and weeks. You know what I'm understanding, so.
I totally understand what you're saying. So what I would recommend is that we go ahead and pursue our investigation of this process. We bring that data back at the next council meeting. And also, I can speak with you all individually beforehand. And then you vote on it at that next meeting, unless we have something else that that makes it necessary for us to delay it to the following meeting. I don't foresee that happening. So I would say most likely we'll bring it back to that next meeting. So that would be our intent.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I will change my vote to yes for the now until we get to that session. And then I may make the same decision, but I think if we're going to make sure that we don't go 6 weeks away, I will put that over to the next meeting we have. So mine will be yes instead of no.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda. Request for council action, Code Compliance Assistance Grant Program. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in our prior conversations about code compliance, one of the things that the council expressed interest in was some sort of assistance for folks to get their properties cleaned up. We don't have a lot of funding for something like this, but we've put together kind of a basic program that could help in certain situations. Essentially, what it would be is a program that would be designed to help low-income households with common code violations such as open storage, accumulated trash and junk, tall grass and weeds, and junk vehicles. And the grant would be structured as a reimbursement grant. That is, no payment would be issued until the violations are resolved and the city receives proof of payment to a business or a contractor for the work needed. And then we would structure the grant to pay 50% of eligible costs, but cap awards at $500. This would require also property owners to show proof of their low income status in the same way that they do for our utility assistance program. And they'd also have to present, include with their application the notices of violation that they'd receive from the code officer, so that it's clear what violations are present. This would only be something that would be available for owners of the property, because when you have renters, then you have a landlord who is responsible ultimately for that property and should be able to handle that out of what they normally receive when it comes to rent. In addition, we're recommending that repeat grant awards not be permitted, and that the violations must be stable. That is, the occupant must not be contributing to those problems becoming bigger. So in your packet is a application form and kind of proposed rules for the program. This is a draft, so we wanted to make you aware that this is the work we've done so far. If there are any changes to this that you'd like to see or any suggestions that you see for improvement, we're happy to take those as well as any questions that you have.
So I think about our own budget and as we move forward with these things. So my question is, did we have a cap of expenditures for this possible for the year? So if these are 50% of $500 and we get 10 or 20, how would we budget for that? How much annualized could it, what was the ceiling?
Yeah, so we could structure it in a number of ways. What I would recommend is that we have a set budget during the fiscal year for this program, and then have it be a first come first serve type program that once it's exhausted, then we don't have any more grants for the rest of the year.
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you guys for bringing this to the agenda. We saw what happened with our downtown when we helped our business owners clean up their property and provide paint. And I just hate it when homeowners and renters are stressed about where they're going to live because they don't have the resources to clean up and follow the code enforcement. So this little bit of a hand up instead of a handout, I think would be really great for our community. And I thank you for it.
Any other questions or comments from councilors? Any direction from council?
So moved as recommended.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Cecily, please take the vote.
Counselor Trask,
Yes.
Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Gorley,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
No.
Counselor Sanchez,
Yes.
Counselor Thorstad.
Yes.
Let the record show that we have 5 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 absent. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, request for council action, easement agreement with Alyrica.
Mayor Larson's show tonight. Sorry. So, as you are aware, we last fall the council approved a franchise agreement with Alyrica Networks to put a fiber optic internet to the home network in Sweet Home. They, as part of their network, they are needing some space to put a telecommunications cabinet and other equipment. This is equipment that wouldn't fit within the right of way. Our franchise agreement gives them the right to install things within our right of way, but this doesn't quite have a place when it comes to that. It wouldn't be an underground facility, it'd be above ground. And so they have requested, and staff has negotiated with them, an easement on the old City Hall property that is, it's in your packet. You can see the map and the where it would be. It's a 20-foot by 20-foot square.
Come to this chair here, please. Wait till you get to the microphone because we can't hear it in the recording.
Jones, I live at 37605 River Drive, Lebanon, Oregon.
Okay.
And do I say anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry. What were you here for, Karen?
Calvin Ames. We dealt with it in Lebanon also. Same sort of situation. We lived in the county, Costa Canal. And it involved a lot of people involved in it, as far as people, places, and things. And they had us all agree to remove some cars and remove some things from the property. And then it came down to going to court again, and we were evicting some people also that were involved. And they said that they did dismiss it all for deficient notice to the situation, to the attorney there, or the judge in Lebanon, and that they wanted us to go to the state for information and like start over with the state for the department. And this guy had private property that I'm talking about, and private property laws go into the effect of that situation. So it was pretty complicated. Anyway, I just was here to support Calvin in the situation because it involves sort of the same situation.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Is there anything else that you were going to share?
I worked for the railroad for 17 and a half years. I was head timekeeper for the Oregon Shasta Division. I exited gracefully from my job. So I'm just kind of helping.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay.